I just wanted to follow on from Richard's question. First of all, to what extent should you be engaging in scenario planning rather than just focusing on that 2 degree, 4 degree, 6 degree because of the inherent uncertainty, and focusing on flexibility in building flexibility into your portfolio and looking at the classes that you're investing in? Secondly, I'm a little bit concerned about the lack of emphasis on adaptation and the lack of recognition of the degree of climate change that is already locked in unavoidably into the future as a result of past emissions. And I'd be interested to hear how the trustees propose to deal with asset classes not only that are low carbon, but also the risk exposures in terms of their failure to adapt to climate change, whether or not they're a high carbon or a low carbon industry themselves.
I think the biggest problem with flexibility is that no one ever manages the date very well. I mean, you can have a lot of flexibility if you're entirely in liquid markets. So, you know, you can be either entirely in the share market, for example. You've got a lot of flexibility as long as the market doesn't completely break down. A lot of flexibility, but usually the market adjustment is all over before you've actually woken up to what's happening. So I think, you know, I think trustees and fund managers have proven time and time again they can't time markets. So I think you need more than, you might want a certain amount of flexibility, that's fair, but to put all your eggs in the basket of flexibility that you can adapt just in time, I think would be a big mistake. But I do agree with you on adaptation. I think there are certain things that could bear much more research currently in terms of adapting.
I'd just comment that for a super fund board, you know, where most boards are at, that level of sophistication to move beyond trying to come up with a baseline scenario that is reasonable and defensible and gives you a framework to act within, to scenario testing is just like too far in the future at this stage. Like it's too big an ask for most super fund boards that I know of.
There is a lot of publicly available information, both published by the IPCC and institutions like PwC and Mercer, where they have established 4 or 5 likely scenarios that can be modelled from. It's not like you're working from scratch. And I'm thinking 10 or 20 years down the track when the question gets asked, why didn't you see this when it was so... You know, benefit of hindsight is obviously a wonderful thing, but it's not like the information isn't readily, publicly available now.
But you're presuming that if this is adopted today, that it will be here in 20 years.
Oh no, it's got to be. That's where the flexibility and iterative nature of the consideration happens, of course. But I think, just by saying, okay, we're going to presume that 2 degrees is where we're going to be at. And that's what we're going to govern the investment strategy for, might be a little bit conservative, I think was the word that was used, based on the information that we have now.
But that as Gary said during the discussion, the resolution 4 does hint at the physical impacts of climate change. So it hints at adaptation rather than abatement.
But then the investment allocation is really just in low carbon, and resilience to climate change risk and exploiting the opportunities is so much more than low carbon.
Yeah, sure. But we haven't actually got to the point. I mean, I think I agree with the sentiment of where you come. We haven't actually got to the point of what is the policy that we're going to try and implement here, and the debate, you know, we would need to have would be to what degree and how quickly do we move on certain things. And I'm sure there'll be a variety of views. For example, personally, I would be very, very supportive of taking the risk. It's actually not risk, it's a departure from the herd measure of getting completely out of any form of electricity generation that emitted above 800 kilograms per tonne, for example, and doing that tomorrow. I'd be very comfortable with that, but that's a sort of a subsequent debate I think we have to have.